Hello, welcome to the Apple Insider podcast. I'm William Gallagher. Our sponsor this week is 1Password. I'm a fan of 1Password, so that makes me particularly happy. And joining me from, some glorious Apple Vision environment with rain and mountains and snow or something is Wes Hilliard. Wes, where do you think you are at the moment?
Well, Yosemite is my favorite. I just like the nice, quiet calm the mountain gives here. So, yeah, sitting in a snowy vista in balmy 80 rainy degree weather in Tennessee. So it's confusing my brain a little bit, but all is well.
You do sound very rested, though. That's nice. I'm a bit tense here. We've got flooding, we've got storms, we've got everything. In fact, in order to be able to be heard, I've had to close blinds and batten down at least one hatch to keep the rain noise out. But we struggle on. Lots to cover this week, of course, loads of news. But before I must say this before I forget it. As well as news on Apple Insider, we do have Apple Insider Plus. And Apple Insider Plus is where we step away from the week's topics and we examine a subject that's just of interest. Maybe it's topical as well, but it's of interest to you and to me and to Wes because all of us, we use Apple technology. Well, we might not always like it, but we definitely are deep into the ecosystem of Apple. And so there are things that are just good to talk about. Except, hang on, Wes, would you say that Apple Insider Plus has to be fair and impartial?
No, it's really just us kind of chattering about our opinions, getting a little more into a specific topic. So it's kind of just us sharing what we think about a specific thing rather than kind of putting a news spin on it.
So just to be clear, to underline this, happily biased is okay with you?
I mean, I was having this discussion with people in our forums recently. I think everything is biased. There's really no such thing as being objective. Everything we say and do is programmed by every moment of our life. But this is not a philosophical podcast. This is...
It's also not a miserable one. And that was telling the reason I ask, okay, is this time, listener Reese Payne emailed me to suggest that we spend one Apple Insider Plus examining Apple Music and Spotify. And Reese... we're so very nearly going to do exactly that. In fact, it will be indistinguishable from that for at least a minute, and then it might go on to other things. You'll understand why later. Reese gets Apple Insider Plus and the ad-free version of the podcast because he's a subscriber. Thanks, Reese. Thanks for the email, and delighted to have you here. If you would like to become a subscriber to Apple Insider Plus, please just check out the show notes. And whether you subscribe or not, still email Wes and I with ideas for what you'd like Apple Insider Plus to cover. It is, as I say that to you, it just occurred to me, it might be a little odd to suggest an idea that you then couldn't hear yourself. But anyway, Wes, let's get on with the news of the week. And I think, without question, headline news has to be that Jony Ive's Love From Firm has, wait for this, it's got itself a new logo with a mascot. Have you seen this, or are you waiting for the glorious reveal next time you go on that site?
I mean, cool. They have a bear.
Yes.
I feel like we already have that here in Appalachia. The Smokey the Bear. I think he stole that from us. I understand California also. This is more of a, I don't know. Bears have a similar silhouette, but for some reason it makes me think polar bear. I don't know why, but
yes,
that's
what I thought. Yeah. Weirdly, I also thought of Paddington, which is a crazy connection to make, and I can't justify it, but that's why I'm not going to say it out loud. Love From is Jony Ive's firm. Jony Ive was for such a long time chief designer, designed the iMac, the iPhone, all of this, and in 2019 went off to form his own firm called Love From. Okay, and he's doing all sorts of things. Recently, tried to raise $1 billion to get an Apple Insider, an AI, an artificial intelligence project off the ground. Hopefully that's happening. But as of this week, lovefrom.com has this new logo. Now, I think
Monty, is it Monty the Bear or Money the Bear? Did they misspell it?
Oh, that's harsh. Monty. I'm going to go with Monty. And just to sum up the picture for you, Love From is written in this really nice font. It's actually a modified version of Baskerville, which is one of my favourite font faces, and a polar bear just kind of ambles across and walks across the letters, and they bend under its weight, and then off he goes to
It's
the
very
side.
Pixar.
Oh, yes, it is. Good point. When I first heard about it, there's a sort of design blog called The Creative Block that I really like for discussions about logo designs, as we all do, I'm sure. It said that it meant the end of Jony Ive's infamous minimalist style because it's a bear and it moves and it's not. But the thing is, Jony Ive is so minimalist. The entire website is the animation on that logo. There isn't anything else. There's nowhere to go into. There's not even a contact us to buy us or something from. It's just that. So it is plain and minimalist. But I've got to tell you this because I was so curious. I wanted to know what the Love From logo used to look like, and I couldn't remember. Was there even one? So I used the Wayback Machine to look at it and found that lovefrom.com was actually registered in 2003. And I'm off on one. I'm thinking, was Ive planning this for 20 years before he went off? And the answer is no. Up to somewhere a few years ago, lovefrom.com was a service that sold, I'm trying to find a way to describe this, adult letters that you could send to people. And compared to the new logo, it was somewhat garish kind of website.
So
be careful
it was basically,
which domain you buy. Yes,
it's basically the company that the guy in Her worked for, where he wrote letters for people, right? Did you ever see that movie?
No. Oh, Her as in
Her.
with Scarlett Johansson. Right. Okay. Oh.
So
okay.
I'm looking at Jony Ive's Love From. They partner with various companies. Like he redesigned the red nose.
Yes.
He's done a lot of like he's working with OpenAI to make some sort of failed product that has AI inside of it, and he also worked with I'm going to say Moncler. I don't know. The clothes looks like French, so I'm going to go with French. He made clothes for this company
I didn't know that.
that range between $2,000 and $3,000, and they look like they would cost about that much because their fashion is way out of my reach. So I'm going to happily say no, thank you to this.
There's a Scottish audio company that makes record players, like actual vinyl things, and to celebrate their anniversary, Jony Ive phoned them up and said, could he work with them? And they're going, this is Jony Ive, is it real? And they did. They got together and they made a special anniversary edition of apparently their first or their most famous record player. And I can't remember the name of the company, but I remember going slightly wide-eyed at the price. It was £50,000. I don't know what that is in dollars, but I think it's a lot, really. In fact, my machines are bleeping at me in utter surprise at just how much that really was.
It's incredible how certain things can just astronomically cost more. If you ever see Caviar, every iPhone release, they come out with this like gold infused version of the iPhone that costs $40,000, and it's just, my gosh. And someone I'm sure pays for it, but like,
yes, I do.
Wild.
Yeah. Every time, every year. Sometimes I buy two, just pass the time. Really. I love logo stuff. I could go on like this, and I think Jony Ive and what he's doing is always so interesting. But you're raising the point of things being very expensive. I think kind of inevitably does bring us to Apple Vision Pro. And the many stories in the last few days of just how exactly Apple is trying to make a cheaper one. As a Vision Pro user, do you care about cheaper ones? You've got yours.
Well, it's one of those things where I could see potentially having one in the house for my fiance, or looking into it for other family members, making a recommendation. Obviously today at $3,500, it's just for me. In my circle of people, there's no one I know that I could just honestly say, hey, go buy a Vision Pro, you'll love it. But if we get something in the $1,000 range, I could say, hey, if you have a little bit of extra money to spend, this is something you could look into. And so a lower price model definitely is appealing in certain ways. Even maybe to me, while I would keep my Pro version, if a lower price model came along, I would at least want to try it out, check it out maybe.
But the stories I keep reading, I don't really know the technology behind Apple Vision Pro, but I'm kind of glommed onto the fact that at least two sources are saying Apple is looking at a far lower resolution display. So something like 1500 pixels per inch instead of something like 3,500 pixels per inch.
It's doable because first of all, other headsets are even lower than that, I believe. What you want to avoid is something called the screen door effect, which is the resolution is so low that it looks like you're looking through a screen door at your content, right, your imagery. And the PSVR 2 has this effect. Meta Quest has this effect. It's just Apple, honestly, I think is the first headset I've heard of that crosses that line. There might be another one like the HTC Vive. There's a few expensive headsets out there that might have crossed that line, but Apple absolutely crosses that line. There's no pixels to see here. Lowering the resolution, of course, I think from this would absolutely start introducing visible pixels, but there's ways to trick the eye that might be able to compensate. Like with eye tracking, you can use foveated rendering to say only really make this sharp where your eyes are looking, and maybe they could use that to help kind of minimize the issue.
But presumably that it won't be as good, because otherwise they would have just done it and saved themselves some cash.
It'll definitely be a worse overall experience, but like worse to who? The 8 people who actually bought a Vision Pro, right? Like Apple needs to get Vision OS, the platform, in more people's hands. It doesn't matter that it's a slightly lesser experience, because overall the software is what's important at this point. The experiences are what's important. And yes, if you can afford the nicer version, go for it. Go buy it, use it. It's worth the money, I think. But in order to get people to actually make software and content, we need more people to have it, and the only way to do that is to sell a lower priced model with less going on inside.
I had the impression that Apple brought it out as cheaply as they could, and that's why the price it is. That's what it cost them to make. Yeah, plus the usual Apple markup, I'm sure, but they couldn't make a cheaper one, so they didn't. Should Apple, given the lack of apps, for want of a better word, experiences, that's the thing I was looking for, should Apple actually have waited until they could have done what I'm terribly sure I keep thinking of as a knockoff cheap version of it? Should Apple have waited?
No, I think I've discussed this before. I think Apple brought the Apple Vision Pro out at the exact right time. It's kind of a cross-section calculation. When is the least expensive thing possible to make and mass distribute while allowing it to be priced in a way consumers can at least afford to some extent? Not all consumers, just consumers in general. And like once you meet that metric, you have to get it out there, because without it being on the market, you can't start solving for problems you don't know about, and you can't start asking for content. Like, you can pay a lot of money to say, hey, go prototype this secret thing and make a movie or a game for this thing that doesn't exist. Take a lot of risk, and it costs a lot of money to do that, because you're basically going to have to prepay for their profits to ensure that they actually care enough to make a good product. Apple kind of didn't do that, I don't think. They pretty much announced it a year ahead of time, and then took that year to make the 5 or 6 immersive content things and get a couple of VR games onto the platform. So they're not really evangelizing it very well, as I've said in my reviews, but I think overall they're doing the right timeline. This thing needed to launch. It had to get out to the public, and I think the more expensive one had to release first. There's no other timeline that makes sense. You're not going to make the cheaper version first.
Oh, is this like the way Tesla brought out the Roadster or something, £250,000 originally, and it was like, look, this is how good electric cars can be, and then it came down.
There's another example that we'll get to later in the show, but the Meta Orion glasses are this exact strategy, except it's not coming to market. So we'll get into that in a minute. But those per unit would have cost $10,000 to manufacture.
Goodness.
And that's why they're not being sold to consumers, because it's just too expensive to mass produce. So We'll get into those glasses in a moment, but this is the same strategy. Get the expensive thing made, prove you can do it, and then work backwards from there.
Okay, I mean, I can't wait around. As soon as you mention something, I've got to know about it. But I have used Apple Vision Pro as it is now for 45 minutes. So I feel our experience is slightly different there. You're on hundreds of hours for it. But it never entered my head in that time to think about the display. It was just real, and that was actually the person sitting opposite me. There was nothing. And I wonder if even that exposure will spoil a lower resolution for me. Will I be constantly thinking this is not as good as it should be?
If Apple can land in Meta Quest Pro or PlayStation VR 2 territory, which isn't perfect, but gets the job done. I have PSVR 2. I use it regularly because Beat Saber still isn't on Apple Vision Pro, so I go play it on the PlayStation every now and then. I don't sit there and think about, wow, this is low pixelated, or the text doesn't look right, or the environments are bad. I just think I'm playing a game, It's a different product. It's a different device. It's not like I pick up my iPad mini and automatically think, ooh, no ProMotion, I hate this. It's just a different product. So I think the lower priced Vision Pro, or Vision, Apple Vision SE, whatever they want to call it,
Yes.
This lower priced product is going to have the same thing. I'm going to pick it up and put it on and be like, this is Vision OS, kind of like iPad OS on a lower priced iPad is still iPad OS. It's just different in a few key ways. I don't think it's going to make the experiences worse, as long as they can still. The most important thing is nailing the eye and hand tracking, the interaction standpoints, because that is what sells a device. The fidelity comes later, right? Don't worry so much about the fidelity, and that's what they're doing here. The most expensive component in Apple Vision Pro is the displays. So bringing that price down will allow them to sell a lower price model.
Okay, I think I was going to say you convinced me, not sure that you've reassured me. In which case it is time. I've got to ask you about the Meta Orion, because all I know about it is I've seen a photograph. And here in the UK, you see those pictures, those glasses, and you think of Joe 90, or of what we would call here NHS specs. So they're really oversized glasses. They're not as big as a headset, but they're very big, thick rims and things like that. And that is the Meta Orion. I'm guessing there's a bit more to it than that.
Well, so these glasses. I wrote the story on this and had a bit of fun with it because I don't know what was going on with Facebook PR or Meta PR, and I understand companies like to use flowery language.
Yeah.
They kind of took it to an extreme. I know, and even Apple is guilty of this, okay? But they just looked everyone in the eye and said, these are regular looking glasses. and I just, the minute I saw that, I said, okay, I have to write about this thing, because these are anything but regular looking glasses. Now, they're less, maybe equally dorky looking as Google Glass, but in a different way. Google Glass put this thing above your left eyeball, whereas these are just very large, thick spectacles. There's no other way to put it. They remind me a little bit of overly produced 3D glasses that you'd wear at a movie theater.
Oh yes, I can see that. Yes,
yeah, they're like a half-inch thick, and the reason why they're so big and thick is, there's not so much compute power going on here. I'm sure there's a few obvious calculations going on in the glasses themselves. They have to have a wireless radio because there's an external compute unit you keep in your pocket. There has to be a battery. So the arms coming off of the glasses themselves are very, very large and thick. So just huge, with several sensors and cameras coming off of that. And then the glasses themselves are very thick because there's multiple layers of this carbide material. So you have this transparent lens. And what they're doing is they're projecting light into this carbide layer to show images, and you see them one in each eye, so you get that 3D effect, having it spatially aware of your surroundings, and you control it by wearing a wristband that basically does kind of like what other devices do. Apple Watch can do this. That it can kind of see your how your tendons move when you move your fingers, so that it knows when you're bending your forefinger versus your middle finger, and can kind of calculate different gestures. So they've done their own versions of gestures for this Apple Vision Pro-like environment using this bracelet. So you need 3 devices for this one AR experience, and Meta calls them lightweight, stylish glasses with holographic displays. Everything about that sentence was just wrong. There's nothing holographic about the displays. They're not lightweight. They're not stylish. I'm just not really sure what their PR team was thinking here, but they do exist in prototype. These are not available for sale.
I have a relative who describes her medical treatment that she offers as holographic when she means holistic. I think it's a word that's somehow losing its meaning there a little bit, but okay.
HoloLens tried to make the claim that their glasses were creating holograms, and no. We've had a few companies over the last few years try to use the word hologram to describe projectors, and still, no, it's a projector. Google Glass used a projector over a decade ago. So that has not changed, and for some reason, we keep coming back to it. I don't think it's the right path. It's the only thing that works right now to get a transparent lens over your eyes, but the only thing I think and what Apple will have to aim for is transparent lenses that are capable of producing images. That's it. We've seen transparent televisions. The technology's there. It just has to be miniaturized. So we're still talking 2 or 3 years away. But what Meta is proposing is these light shows that take place in front of your eyes are supposed to somehow be more socially acceptable than Apple Vision Pro covering your eyes entirely. So you're walking around wearing these definitely normal looking pair of glasses, and there's the Aurora Borealis projecting from your face. I don't know that that's more desirable, honestly.
So this light spill is that I'm struggling to. I don't have the same problem with you with the glasses, because I think I don't know how I have seen glasses that didn't seem that different to it. Whereas with Google Glass, I can't believe it's 10 years ago, but I remember thinking instantly, this is wrong. With this one, I mean, it's not like it would have taken me a second to notice, but it would have taken me slightly longer to notice.
These are passable from a distance. Like if you just saw a dude walking down the street with these, you probably wouldn't think too much about it. And if you were talking to them, it would be clear that they were watching TV instead of talking to you, because the way this works is because of the projection, you can see the projected images in front of their eyes, more or less. There's probably some filtering going on, so maybe you'll get a blur, but there's definitely light being reflected outwardly. So if you're in a dark room, you just have a beacon of light shining out from your face. Not unlike a smartphone, I suppose. But it's interesting in so many ways that this was... All right, so let's talk about why. All right. Why did Meta announce this today? Why do you think?
Well, it's got to be an... Are they not selling it yet? Am I right? It's going to be a while. Right. So
years.
It's trying to say... We're at the forefront of this. It's probably got to say we're better than Apple in some way. Is there an investment thing? Look at us, we're pushing ahead, kind of give us money thing.
5 years ago, Meta announced that they were going to build glasses, and that the metaverse starts in VR but becomes AR. So they had to commit to that.
Right.
Here we are 5 years later. They need something to show, so they show it. Because investors are worried that their pivot to Meta is a big lie, because all they've talked about recently is AI. But don't worry, these glasses also have AI, so that's still a thing.
Okay. I learned this week that the reason there are so many Spider-Man films is contractual. There has to be a new Spider-Man film every 5 years and 9 months or less, or the contract is cancelled, and it's such a sweet deal. We are going to get them forever. So there's a company doing something purely because of what it's committed to in the past, and sounds like Meta's doing it too. Wasn't there, I think, just before the Apple Vision Pro was announced, that Meta accidentally leaked its roadmap for the future, as if to say, forget them. Yeah.
So Meta already sells glasses through Ray-Ban.
I didn't know that. All right.
Yeah, they're these smart glasses with like speakers that play music, and you can ask it its Meta AI questions, and it's a very basic version of this kind of thing. It's not showing you anything on the display. They're just they're capable of taking a photo, interacting with an AI, or playing music, that kind of stuff. But they're not displaying anything. They're attached to your smartphone or whatever. I think maybe you can get them independent and have a cellular connection, maybe, and then have them offload information to the cloud. I don't know. They exist. Fine. People buy this stuff, but I think I treated this as a good preview for what we can expect as a sign, as another signpost on the road to Apple glasses, right. Because Apple Vision Pro exists. It's a product that's being sold today. You can wear it. It runs Vision OS, the platform that will give us Apple glasses eventually. People have asked me, but how? It's basically a VR headset with mixed reality. Yes, but Vision OS is a platform that will run in augmented reality, just like it can now. If you turn off the immersive environment, and just walk around your room, you are technically in augmented reality, even though you're seeing it in a VR environment. But placing objects in your room is still what Vision OS is doing. Eventually, that will be done through a pair of transparent glasses that could be coming as soon as 2027 if rumors are accurate, which they're probably not. They haven't been for a long time. If rumors were accurate, we would have had Apple glasses in 2019. Meta coming out with this now just kind of proves a little bit that proof of concept, you can kind of do this today. The projection that it does shows a UI not dissimilar from what Apple Vision Pro shows, floating windows that surround you. The gestures aren't too dissimilar from what Apple Vision Pro offers today. So theoretically, instead of having a pair of Meta glasses, and a compute unit you put in your pocket, and a wristband to control it, Apple already has half of those components today. Just the Apple Watch would be the control unit, perhaps another wristband to go along with it, so both hands could actually be used, because right now Meta's thing only uses one hand. The compute unit would just be your iPhone that you already own, that you already buy, and then your glasses would just be your glasses. And I think that's where Apple, that was my pitch here, Apple already has a leg up on Meta's pre-announcement. Google did this, HoloLens did this, Magic Leap did this. Everyone came out saying the future is augmented reality, and here's what we have to offer we're going to work towards enterprise and then work backwards into consumer, and they all failed unilaterally. I think Meta is destined to do the same, because they're releasing too soon. They're using primitive technology that needs to be further developed. Apple's the only one that's not going to pre-announce anything until it's ready. And they'll probably pull a Vision Pro where they announce it a year ahead of time and then launch it. So I would expect 2026 we could actually see a pair of glasses from Apple.
So the reason whenever in between the podcasts, I have this mental list of Wes will know about this. And this was one of them. There were two this week in particular, but one of them was I'd heard this story, Meta Orion, fantastic, killer Apple, Apple Vision Pro killer app, all of this stuff. And now every single bit you tell me makes me think this is junk. I mean, that last thing...
It doesn't exist. It's not available. Yeah. You can't buy it.
And if you could buy it, it only works with one hand. There's a joke there, but this is a family show. The other thing that I thought I've got to ask about, this is actually something else you did a review of. You did a review of the Clicks keyboard. And I'm particularly interested in this because I run a YouTube channel for writers who use Apple gear and stuff. And there's been a discussion on there recently about tiny keyboards for iPhones. And I forgot about Clicks till somebody said to me I should look at it. And you've already done this. Can you explain to me, should I be buying a Clicks for my brand new iPhone 16 Pro Max?
Well, I had fun photographing it, that's for sure. This was a good review.
Right.
So, Clicks keyboard. The review is on the iPhone 15 version. There is an iPhone 16 version that is available, and it's better. It has MagSafe. I'm probably going to review that as well at some point. They've redone some of the buttons, made them bigger. stuff like that to just improve quality of life stuff. So clicks for iPhone 16 is obviously going to be better and address some of the issues I brought up in the review, but I did that on purpose, and I released it on the eve of the iPhone 16 releasing because it needed to get done. But I think a lot of what I said still stands for the iPhone 15 version to the 16 version. It's a nostalgia packaged in physical form. You can buy it. It's a lot of fun. You connect it to your phone. There's a lot of good and a lot of bad, but this is one of those things that I think should exist.
But if someone hasn't even heard of this, and I obviously forgot about it, so it wasn't top of my mind, what actually is Clicks for iPhone?
Okay, so start from the beginning. It's it's a kind of a dream device someone put together. Let's see, the company was founded by Mr. Mobile, if anyone's heard of him, and he worked with a guy named Crackberry Kevin, right? Who, yep, that's his name.
Okay,
and
right.
He's
it's the parents I blame, but okay. Yeah.
And a bunch of BlackBerry vets. So the whole idea was we're going to bring BlackBerry's famous keyboard to a digital era where, if we look back at Steve Jobs introducing the iPhone, he showed BlackBerries on the screen saying, we're getting rid of this because the touchscreen is now the keyboard. And what Mr. Mobile and these other guys wanted to do is create a keyboard that brought back physical keys to the iPhone. And it does a lot of interesting stuff. When you connect your iPhone to it, first of all, it makes your phone much longer. It's a little unwieldy, but it's fine. It gets rid of the keyboard on screen, so you have room for more content.
Okay, right.
Right, so now your whole phone is the content, whether that's iMessage or drafts. The keyboard's now below that, so now your whole iPhone's in use, which is interesting. You get these backlit keys with function controls, and you can also use Command Space to bring up Spotlight, different shortcuts. Command H will take you home. The only thing you can't do is Command Tab, because there's no such thing as Command Tab on iPhone. Right. But a lot of fun little things there. You can do the keyboard shortcuts. There's a caps lock there. You can hold down the numerical key to get access to all the alt keys. Stuff like that. It all just kind of works. The keys themselves are very clicky. They're very nice to press. It's different from having a haptic engine on an iPhone. You're actually pressing a key on a keyboard with a little bit of travel, and it definitely takes some getting used to. This is not for the faint of heart. You're not going to buy this and suddenly be an expert. You're going to be bad at it, guaranteed, because the iPhone has done something to our brains when typing with thumbs that BlackBerry did not, because BlackBerry still required precision and thought every time you hit a key. iPhone,
of course.
iPhone
the tap area it's got to be just the size of the key now. It can't interpret that you're near enough to what was probably the next letter. Okay.
Yep. Our brains are stupid, and it knows that you don't have to hit the key, that it's going to just fix it for you in post. If you're just slapping away at a text and you're going for the Y key, but your thumb lands entirely on the H key, it still knows that you meant to hit the Y key, and then so it types Y. Clicks can't do that. It's a physical keyboard, so you have to deliberately hit each key. It slows you down. So it sounds awful because it kind of is. It kind of is. But I would definitely say if you owned a BlackBerry keyboard and loved it, this is a fun trip down memory lane. It's expensive in the $100 range for what it is. Yep. It doesn't protect your phone. It's not water resistant. It doesn't have MagSafe for the iPhone 15 version. So that's all the bad things. So do not go out and buy this thing if you even have an inkling of, why do I need this? Because it's not for you. This is purely a toy made for people who want to feel nostalgic, who have some money to burn. That's all it is. I love that it exists. My argument during the whole review was, it's so dumb, but also I'm so happy that companies can still go out there and say, this should exist. This should be made. It's whimsical. It's fun. And it doesn't have any real practical purpose other than just being a nostalgia trip. And I love it.
I have to assume that you can't do swipe to type on it.
No.
That must be impossible. But since iOS 18, my iPhone has decided that I write in English and French. I mean, I know the odd French word. I read French, but I don't write anything in it. But every now and again, I find it has just decided to switch over to French. And you look at the keyboard thing of what language I'm in, and it still says English. So something's going on there. I'm pressing some button. Can you switch keyboards on the click thing if you don't have the on-screen?
You just then you bring up the on-screen. If you're going to type Japanese or some other keyboard that is not,
oh right, so
what is it, ANSI or whatever? If you don't have the standard layout keys, then you're not doing anything different. There is a hardware keyboard setting in iPhone and iPad that you can configure that kind of stuff, but you're not buying it for that. This is
no.
I really like clicks. What my whole argument here is first of all, give them money if you have it, because they need to keep developing. I think it's really cool that they took the time to do this. I would love to see a keyboard line for iPhone and competitors entering the space. I know it's not going to happen because it's too niche and too expensive, but I think it would be really cool to see this kind of stuff enter the accessory space, because it just doesn't exist right now. And I always want to see new and unique accessories. It's an interesting concept. Think of a MagSafe attaching keyboard you slap on the back of your phone, and then it pops out like a Sidekick keyboard beneath the landscape view of your phone. Like, there's so many ways you could have some fun with this that no one's ever going to make because it's impractical and expensive. But I think too often today, things are made because they're going to make a lot of money and not because they're fun or should exist, right? People no longer make things just because it's a fun idea that will get them a niche audience and just enough money to basically break even or have a little bit of profit. No, everything today has to be this money grab that's going to get bought out by a VC firm and make them millions of dollars. And that's removed some of the soul from technology. And I think that clicks and companies like it bring a little bit of that back. And that's what I like about it.
This episode is brought to you by 1Password. You know 1Password, and actually, I think if you didn't, the name would clue you in to what it is most famous for doing. But there is now more to this password manager app. This app that so securely creates and stores passwords, as well as holds all your credit card numbers, your software licenses, everything. There's this term I think it's in architecture, called desire paths. Rather than laying out paths around a building, you should leave it all grass and then come back a few months later to see where has everyone walked. And then you put paths where they are clearly needed, where they are wanted. And in this way, it used to be that firms had rigid IT policies where you used the apps they said you did and the web services that they mandated or maybe created, and you did it on the devices that they gave you as part of your job. Today, you have no hope of laying down such rigid paths for your employees. They are going to use their own devices. They're going to use the tools they want to, and they're going to do all of this with very good reasons. They want to use what will help them get their jobs done the best way they can, but you don't know what those sites and apps are. You don't even know what devices are being used. So for all the brilliance of this technology empowering your staff, every bit of it is a security risk for your company. And you know where this is going. Yes, it's 1Password. Specifically, though, it's the new 1Password Extended Access Management. It is the first, truly the first, security solution to all of this. It makes sure that every user credential is strong and is protected. It makes sure that every device is known and is healthy, and it means every app is visible. 1Password Extended Access Management, it's device management, but without the traditional limitations. It's security for the way that companies need to work today. And speaking of today, right now it's generally available to companies with Okta and Microsoft Entra, and it's also in beta for Google Workspace. Check it out for yourself at onepassword.com/AppleInsider podcast. So that's 1Password, the digit 1 and the word password.com/AppleInsider podcast. And thanks to 1Password for supporting the Apple Insider podcast. I mentioned in there, just as you were talking about clicks and what it can't do that I have this thing with iOS 18. It's like Apple daftness, I think I'm calling it, on iOS 18. But of course, the thing we're waiting for is Apple Intelligence, which is coming soon, but at different times. And I truly get so confused. First over which bits are coming when, and then which bits are coming to where I am in the UK when, because I'm obviously, not unreasonably, getting it later than the US for it. So, Wes, what's the story? What's coming next? When can I have it, please?
Well, I can't tell you anything about the UK because I frankly don't care. No, it's...
Oh. No, I got to tell you, since Brexit, we did it to ourselves. It's fine. Okay,
well, honestly, the EU's getting nothing, so that's easy to tell.
Yeah.
I'm sure the UK's on the other English-speaking countries list, which is December, I believe.
Right. For the start of whatever bits.
For the initial launch of different things. It's a bit confusing. I can't keep up with it all. Yes, it's my job to write this stuff when I'm writing. I have references in front of me. So from the United States perspective, though, very clearly we are getting writing tools, cleanup in photos, summaries across the system, and the new Siri Rainbow and ability to understand mistakes. That is the initial launch of Apple Intelligence. I might be missing a couple of small details there, but that's the major tentpoles of the launch. Writing tools, summaries, photo cleanup, and a couple of odds and ends around the system that, not necessarily even Apple Intelligence at this point, honestly.
So, writing tools, summaries, cleanup, Siri, to me that's it's Siri is the one that's going to have it. If Siri were, Iris or whatever we want to call it is reacting from somewhere here, the changes to Apple's voice assistant, let's be careful here, that is the thing that's going to get me. I will feel personally betrayed if it isn't actually better than it has been.
So the second wave is image related, image playgrounds and Genmoji. That's going to be 18.2.
Okay.
So basically before the end of the year. And then 18.2 or 18.3, again, before the end of 2024, we are getting the ChatGPT and other systems integrations like Google and visual intelligence on iPhone 16. And then 18.4 in early 2025, we're getting the full Siri intent revamps across the board that allow third parties to tap in using their Siri intents, and Siri will be much more able to understand like queries about what's on the display, about what's in the apps, what's in the device. That is the super intelligence upgrade to the Smart Assistant coming in spring of next year, before WWDC anyway.
I will be crossing my fingers for months then. But actually, a lot of my problems with Iris seem to have gone away since I moved to an iPhone 16 Pro Max. I used to always have this thing that if I was in the car and I said Iris, or the correct word, it would not listen. And now it once ignored me, but otherwise it's like the microphones are better or something. It always responds. So I'm liking that. And
well, what's funny is, if you haven't noticed, I can say it without anything exploding. I've always been a bit of a Siri unicorn, where it actually knows when I'm talking to it and when I'm not. That's supposed to be a feature.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know why, but it always works for me. Every now and then. What's funny is it's never people saying it on TV or in podcasts that gets it. It's when people say adjacent words to it that sound like it.
I do get it on TV, and actually, just once in a very rare while, we have an Alexa something mini thing somewhere in the living room. It will also respond to things on TV, which is weird because Amazon done some sort of very, very clever stuff to stop that happening. But then actually, I remember years and years ago reading Apple explaining, as much as they do, just giving you the idea of it, that when you have all of these devices, the moment you say the trigger word, they all talk to each other and they work out
a polling system.
One? Yeah, which one did he use last and all this stuff. And it's incredibly well worked out and it's utter rubbish because I will sit in my office here in my living room, near my living room, like upstairs and 2 doors away from the living room. I'll say something to my watch, my Mac, my, at the moment, 2 iPhones, my iPad behind me, and it will be the HomePod Mini in the living room that responds. And I just... How good are the microphones on the HomePod Mini? That's very impressive, but it's never what I want. So I've ended up pushing the button on my watch, pushing the digital crown, so it knows, yes, this one, please. And that can't be a good thing. It's just picking on me, isn't it?
Well, so beyond Siri, the thing is, there we go. Because I paused,
yes,
Vision Pro decided to bring it up.
Excellent. I mean, sorry, but I feel I was feeling left out. I was feeling persecuted there.
Well, it's because I paused, right? That's what it's listening for. It's listening for me to address it directly, and that's usually how you address a person. You say their name, pause, and then say something. But if you're saying it in the middle of a sentence, it shouldn't acknowledge you because, again, that's not how that's supposed to work. You don't start a command and then in the middle of the sentence say the command word to wake it. That's not how that's supposed to work. Anyway, there's supposed to be intelligence here, but the initial rollout of Apple Intelligence I think is interesting because I have had normal people come up and say, "Oh, I've ordered the 16. What can I do with it? I've heard about Apple Intelligence," and I don't know because I don't think it's Apple being dishonest, so to speak. It's the world being dishonest about how AI works and what it offers, that people, I don't know what they're expecting, but they're expecting some life-changing event. And I'm like, you can kind of do a grammatical check on your email. You can remove objects from your photos. There's not this groundbreaking huge change, but you look at the greater world of AI and to be fair, none of it is a groundbreaking world-changing thing. You can make this an interesting image that stole copyright from Disney, or you can have it generate an essay, not with Apple, to try and cheat on your homework. But what do people actually use AI for? I don't know because I don't really use it myself. I've been using Apple Intelligence features because I actually really like how Apple's executed this. Not only is it private, it's on device, and it's post creation. So I have to create something and then use the tools. It doesn't create the stuff for me. I have to go out and take the photo before I remove an object from it. I have to write the article before I do a grammar check on it. Those things all fall into my use cases and why I would want to have intelligent tools. Even Genmoji makes sense to me, I think, because it's just a silly gimmick of here's a topic of our chat, make something to laugh at kind of thing. Or Image Playground giving you the options of generating content using photos or drawings that you already have in your possession. It puts the creation on the person rather than the tool. And I like that. Not only that, but anything that is sent to Apple servers is running off of renewable energy. So it takes care of that complaint too. So from my perspective, Apple's doing all of this the right way, but it's all incredibly boring because in reality, AI is just super boring. Tell me what this stuff is actually meant to do that's supposed to be so life-changing that people are rushing out to buy the iPhone 16 because it's a super cycle or whatever. What is it? It doesn't do anything other than make mundane things better. And I think that's fine.
And steal my work to profit big technology companies. Let's not rule it. That's a skill right there that they've got. Okay, yes, you're saying, isn't there somebody, was it somebody at OpenAI? I might be unfair there. Someone's saying that creators are overvaluing the worth of their material.
That was Mark Zuckerberg.
Away. Oh, sorry. Right, let's just take all of our material away and see how long you last. So, grumble.
Yeah.
But Apple Intelligence is coming then, and I like that you're describing it as, well, you weren't accusing it of being boring, you're saying AI in general is boring, because I think we will get to the stage where it will just be okay and normal, and we'll get through the problems.
We wasted it. We threw away a term like we're throwing away holograms on just simple projectors. We're throwing that term away. It's a fun sci-fi thing that we invented to describe a technology that does not exist and maybe could not exist. It's meant to be this hope for a future, not applied to Happy Honda days, right? Like they commercialized it, they wrapped it in a bow, and now they're selling it, right? It's so poorly executed, it's laughable. There's nothing intelligent about artificial intelligence. I will die on this hill. And it's such a dumb term that we've ruined it because people are out here, they've got these massive expectations. It's going to change the world. It's going to take our jobs. And it's like, yeah, you can put a comma into a sentence that you forgot to put a comma into. Like, cool, I guess. My argument here is all AI is boring. Honestly, show me what it can actually do that benefits me and the human race, and maybe we can have a different discussion. But people are out here asking, what's this groundbreaking Apple Intelligence? Like, why am I buying iPhone 16? What can it do for me? And it's like, not what you think. Even Google's offerings of AI isn't anything revolutionary. It's destroying photography by taking realism out of it. It's providing information that are probably just made up lies. What can someone tell me what we're supposed to be excited about? Because I just don't know.
Yeah, apart from that, though, you're all in, obviously, on Apple Intelligence. But
I'm using it. I am, but that's the thing. It's boring, and that's fine. But like, I just don't understand the hype the rest of the world is having. Like, people are coming to me like, no one talks to me about this technology stuff until something significant happens, and normal people are like, oh, so how about that Apple Intelligence? It's like, what about it? Like, it's as interesting as a calculator on iPad. It's a tool that we get to use.
Sorry, just think of all the people at Apple slaving away on this, and you're dissing it. But I agree. I'm not disagreeing. I just think what you've put in my mind is actually we're a week in to the new iPhones without Apple Intelligence. How are you finding yours? Are you happy? Well, yours has come, I take it.
I'm on beta, of course. Yes. Oh, right. So, wow, this episode just flew by, didn't it? I think we spent a little time on Meta, but the iPhone. So I got the iPhone 16 Pro Max and the Apple Watch Series 10. Both are great. I see here you have a note here saying you can't tell a difference in the Series 10. I like the larger display. I immediately started using that new watch face where it takes up the seconds. Yes. It's so nice. I immediately could tell the size and weight difference because I'm moving from stainless steel to titanium. It was a 20% decrease in weight. So I very much noticed a difference. I'm enjoying the Series 10. It's an Apple Watch, right? I haven't been told I have sleep apnea yet. We'll see. I think it takes about a month. But otherwise, yeah, it's an Apple Watch. Do you have any comments on Apple Watch, and then we can dive into the iPhone?
Many. I mean, I think I'm glad I bought it. I do recognise that it's lighter. I went for the aluminium one, so I know it's not as much as yours, and I do recognise the thinnerness of it. But one
would
thing
you upgrade from?
7. Okay. So actually, last night, this feels silly now I'm saying it out loud, but I wore both of them on the same wrist, side by side, and there was a moment there where I got them mixed up. I do not find the screen that much bigger. I'm really shocked at that. But also, I think maybe I was foolish here, but the thing of the fact that it keeps showing you the second hand, I assumed that was for all faces. I didn't understand why it wouldn't be. So when I wasn't using that new reflection face and it wasn't showing me the thing, I wondered. I think that contributed to my thinking I'm looking at the wrong one. It's when you switch to reflection, there it is. And when you do certain types of stopwatch and things, there it is. So you see it updating every second. So I'm not. There's an ancient joke in the UK about the phrase, I'm not unenjoyerizing it. Okay. It's just, I'm not finding this. I expected to find the screen feel bigger. I mean, I knew the dimensions going in, but when you look at it on the Apple Watch Ultra, it appears so much bigger. I think because the watch seems so much bigger. So that was a surprise to me. But
coming at the Apple Watch from the point of view of a consumer and not an enthusiast,
yeah,
I would say the Apple Watch reached absolute maturity around Series 6. And from Series 6 to Series 10, the iterative updates have been enough that maybe tech nerds can discuss the differences, but no one else is going to notice. And jumping from a 6 to a 10, honestly, won't yield enough of a difference other than you're getting a fresh new battery and maybe a thinner, lighter watch. I think it's a good upgrade. I think you were smart to upgrade now, because any longer you'd probably run out of updates. But I think this is where the Apple Watch is, and that's okay. I'm kind of tired of the world expecting revolutionized updates, and that's where we get to the iPhone. Like Apple Watch Series 10, I like it. I'll probably buy a Series 11. I'm just that person. But it doesn't need to always be groundbreaking. But honestly, a 20% reduction in rate and weight, and a new finish with a better always-on display, I'm buying that. But I'm not your average consumer. For anyone else, all I have to say is, are you on the compatibility list for this year? And will you be on for next year's watchOS update? That's how you should consider buying an Apple Watch going forward. And I think that's just fine until something revolutionary happens in the health space, maybe glucose monitoring or such.
I've got to say, part of me wishes we had this conversation before I bought it, but part of me also thinks I think we did. Actually,
we did,
and
I still thought it was a good idea for you to update. I still think it is. Like, it's not going to be world changing, but you do need a new battery eventually, and you do need to ensure you're getting those watchOS updates. So I think a Series 7 jump is just fine.
I do like it, and it does feel faster, and it is lighter, and it is fractionally thinner for it.
Especially
so I'm
aluminum.
Unhappy, yes.
That's $100 a year, William. I mean, I think you're fine.
Okay.
No, so yeah,
that helped actually. Thank you.
Yeah,
okay, all right.
Yes. You're paying for it just by wearing it, right? But in any case, the boring iPhone 16, right? Apple added a new button. How often do they do that? Oh, they did it last year. Great. So go before that.
No. Isn't the question, how often have you used that button since you got it?
I did use the action button immediately. It did slow, and I've picked it back up again. I agree the action button is a bit of a muscle memory issue, but I don't think it's so much whether you're using it or not. It's just how much has changed generation to generation. It still needs to be discussed, because I think that's a little bit of what's lost in the nuance here. I know we're running out of time, but the 16 Pro Max, I love it. I can tell, weirdly enough, in the UI, the difference in the screen size, not so much in physically looking at it. Unless I'm holding the phones side by side, then I can see it a little bit more obviously. But the first time I opened the Mail app, it looked wrong because it was bigger. It had more lines and more width. So like stuff like that is immediately noticeable. So the display is definitely larger, but weirdly enough, it doesn't feel noticeably heavier. This is still lighter than the stainless steel 14.
Oh, that's interesting, because I came from the 15 Pro, so to me, I'm very conscious of the bigger screen, but also, and I truly didn't expect this, I'm really conscious of the weight of it. It feels a lot heavier than my 15 Pro, enough that I'm feeling kind of delicate with it.
It is heavier. It's the same thickness. It's still titanium. It's nice. Externally, pretty much identical. I have found myself picking up the 15 a couple of times and pressing on the antenna wire, trying to get it to take a photo. That's just, that's always going to happen when you're comparing very nearly identical models design-wise. Capture button, though, I love it. I'm not going to call it a game changer, but it is definitely useful and unique to iPhone. I've seen shutter buttons on other phones, all the way back to flip phones. Apple even had a shutter button on the smart battery case. Third-party manufacturers have had shutter buttons on MagSafe chargers. It's not a unique idea, but Apple definitely took it and made it into an Apple thing with force presses and swipes. It's a really unique interaction model, and I'm really enjoying it. I've taken to replacing the camera button on all my lock screens and all my focuses to force me to use.
That's a good idea. Yes.
Yeah, to force me to use the capture button more.
Oh, I'm doing that. That's an excellent idea. I wonder what I'll put there instead. All these years you couldn't change it, and now you can, and I can't decide what to put there. It'll be the OmniFocus inbox, won't it, basically?
Probably.
Thank you. Okay.
Well, in personal, I put Delta there, and in sleep, I put the alarm clock there so I could go change my alarm. Stuff like that.
Idea too.
Yeah. So it's a useful. It's already changing the way I use the device, and that's how you can usually gauge these kinds of features. Does it change how you use the device? Action button augmented what I already did, which is launch apps or launch features. It took a step away in certain circumstances, but it didn't really change how I use the device. But the capture button already is changing how I use my iPhone, and I think That's what makes it particularly interesting. And part of it is a skill issue. I need to go in and really think about Action Button more and actually make it something that I care about. Make it, I don't know, start playing a podcast or something. I need to actually think about that. But in any case, what's changed about this device other than the capture button is internal. They've made it cooler when it's running. They've made it faster and better as far as the processing goes. Something I haven't got to test too much of. I've been playing a few games. It is definitely notably better at running things like Resident Evil, whereas like more comparable to the M4 in my iPad Pro than to the A17 Pro and the iPhone 15 Pro. It's just a better device and the usual metrics, but also photography. And this is going to be a huge portion of my review. I made a decision early on, William. I want to hear what you think of this before we close, because by the time we get to the next recording, my review might be out. So I wanted to discuss it here. So a little preview.
Okay, hang on. Preview good, but not a spoiler, because I'm looking forward to your review.
Not a spoiler. It's
right.
Okay. So I made a conscious decision. And I want to hear what you think of this. iPhone has been incredibly consistent as a camera for the past few years. So much so that once we hit 48 megapixels in the main camera, I feel like is a waste of everyone's time to do a side-by-side slider of comparing generation to generation the main camera.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It's because, let me put it this way. If your camera changes dramatically how it produces photos year to year, it's a issue with prioritization and how the company is thinking about things, and not with the hardware, right? So it's different. Now let me be specific. The ultra wide camera jumping from 12 megapixels to 48 megapixels deserves a side-by-side comparison, because that is going to increase sharpness. It's going to change how light is gathered. It's going to change how macro works. That's different. But if year to year your camera pipeline changes but your camera doesn't, but for some reason you're seeing dramatically different results, that's an issue with the company. That's an issue with having an opinion, and you're chasing fads. And we've seen this happen with a lot of Android phones, where their camera output changes dramatically year to year on some Samsung phones, some Pixel phones, whatever, because they've completely changed how they think about how a photo should be produced. Apple doesn't do that, period. And I think I wanted to emphasize that in this review I want to take photos with the main camera, but I'm not going to put a bunch of sliders up to say this is what the 15 looked like on the main camera. This because the Fusion camera on the 16 and the main camera on the 15, because that's what it's called on the 16, they're physically different. Apple did change the cameras, they did change the pipelines, but they produce incredibly consistent photos. So comparing them side by side is useless unless you're targeting areas that Apple compensated for in the new Fusion camera. So I would have to do a lot of research and find ways to break the 15 that doesn't break the 16 in order to make a proper comparison. And no one's interested in that. Let DxOMark do that. What people are interested in is, does it take a good photo? Can I capture a photo of my pets? Can I get that scenery and make it mine? And the pipeline is better. And what I think is good, and it's better while remaining consistent, which is crazy, right? Because not only are you still taking your iPhone photos, but it's able to do better in different lighting conditions that it couldn't do as good before, right? It's making different decisions in certain ways, but making different decisions that make the photos better without changing the construct of that photo. It is still an iPhone photo. But added on top of all of that, William, is photographic styles. And that is the true game changer in these iPhones.
Okay. We've talked about photographic styles before, and actually I do want to go into them again when I've tried them out and ask you some more detailed, more knowledgeable questions about them. But just before we finish and I ask where people can phone you in the middle of your photographic shoots, I can't prove this, but it seems to me that the sound quality on the iPhone 16 Pro Max is significantly, noticeably better than my iPhone 15 Pro. The first person who called me, I'd just finished setting up and it rang, and the that caller commented on how much better I sounded. And the other day, I was interviewed on more than a dozen BBC local radio stations, all of whom phoned me through this thing, and you listen back afterwards and it's studio quality for most of them. Now I know a lot of that's got to be down to their end and things, but I've been interviewed a lot before. I can feel a difference in the sound, and I wasn't expecting that, so I did enjoy that.
Apple made a point to say that the microphones are being used more for isolation and calls than before, so that is a feature of the new lineup, that your voice is being isolated better than before.
Oh, right. Well, thank you very much, Apple. Then, cool. In that case, I'm going to phone you, obviously. That's what I'm going to do. But should anyone else wish to get in touch with you, and phone might not be the most convenient way, how do people find you in this world?
Well, I'm on Mastodon at Hilly Tech, and I want to say, comment on our articles, email us. You can join us in the forums. Ignore some of the more angry people there. I promise it's a decent enough place to have a conversation. Or you can click the email button with our name on it. It'll pop up in a compose box. Send it direct to us. Also, let me know what you think of the review. I don't know the exact day it's coming out, but I'm fairly certain it's coming out before our next recording. So comment, email, whatever. I want to hear what you think of my approach to photography in this one is, and what you thought of this discussion here. Little teaser. Didn't get into too much detail, but we'll continue that conversation next week when we can talk about the review in full. But definitely reach out. As always, I've been getting some good emails from people, and I'm always appreciative of that. But I did want to mention before we go, Apple Podcasts, right, has a review system. We've always held pretty consistently to about a 4.3. I don't know why, but that's just where we land. We've had a few comments lately on our audio, and we are both fully aware that the audio issues were pronounced and annoying for a little bit because just shifting offices and different things William had to deal with, I had to deal with.
Actually, I got to stop you there. You're just being nice. Basically, can I say I screwed it up? Can we say that? It was me, but it's fixed now. So thank you for trying to smooth over that for me.
Well, I'm just saying people have a reason. I'm never going to say don't leave a bad review. Please leave any review. It's justified as long as it's justified. We take it into account. We read these things. It's important to us that we hear from our listeners about what they think about the show. But it's a very true thing of human nature that the people who are upset are more likely to speak out. I would like to hear from the listeners on both sides, of course. If you are upset, please tell us that you're upset. But the silent ones who are enjoying the show, who are listening every week, if you haven't left a review before, or if you haven't left one for a while, go update it. You can do that. Go leave a review. Tell us what you think of the show as a whole. Commenting on a specific episode isn't always useful, but you can just, tell us about the show, tell us about the hosts, and pick how many stars you want. The more the better, of course. As we can maybe push some of those more nasty things out, because as always, when you shift hosts or when you have audio issues, people are more likely to leave angry reviews with very poor star ratings, and I don't like that is what's representing our show on Apple Podcasts right now, because that's not who we are. I think we do quite a good job. I hear from a lot of our listeners that they really enjoy our show, that we do a good job every week putting out content and talking about Apple, and I want our reviews to reflect that. So giving you guys a mission, a little bit of homework, please go on Apple Podcasts, fill out a little review form. What about you, William?
Well, to totally step away from that, the best way to reach me is through a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, or my phone number is +44. Oh no, okay.
I only communicate exclusively through reviews. So, in order to contact me, you have to leave a review.
Yeah, or William@AppleInsider.com. Just slip that in there. Listen, Wes, great talking to you. I love when I'm coming to this and I've got things to ask you, and you know the answers. Tremendous. I look forward to this every week. So thank you for that. Also, thank you very much to our sponsor this week, 1Password. I love 1Password. And thank you to you, too, for listening, especially if you're a subscriber to Apple Insider Plus, because we get to talk for a little bit longer. And that will be coming up in just a moment. But for this minute, that's it for this week's episode of the Apple Insider podcast. Don't forget, there's also HomeKit Insider from Apple Insider. Insider is a word that gets used a lot there, but HomeKit Insider on Mondays is a good listen as well. And of course, Wes and I will be back next week.
Talk to y'all then.